Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Krista Laing, and I'm the chair of the CUPE Ontario Municipal Workers Committee. I'm going to start today's conference with a land acknowledgement. As we gather here today, we acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional territory of many nations. In particular, we express our gratitude to the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and Wendat peoples, and all First Nations peoples across Turtle Island who have protected and nurtured these lands from the beginning of time. Our recognition of the historic importance of Indigenous people is clearly and overtly linked to our collective commitment to continually pursue and make real the Truth and Reconciliations Commission's calls to action in our community and in our union. Thank you, everyone. As I said before, my name is Krista Laing, and I serve on the CUPE Ontario Executive Board with Katherine Grzejszczak. Joining us today are Anna Lippman from Independent Jewish Voices, Daniel Paré of the Center for Free Expression, joining us online, Pamela Arancibia from Labor for Palestine, and Basel Daoud from the Healthcare Workers Alliance for Palestine. We're happy to take questions if you can refrain for the end of the news conference, and please ensure your cell phones are on silent, and if you could refrain from applause, that would be excellent. So we're here today because something deeply unjust has taken place, and workers across the province refuse to stay silent. Katherine Grzejszczak is a trained paramedic, a leader in her union. She has dedicated herself to saving lives and serving the people of York Region. It's a role that requires skill, compassion, and integrity. Because Katherine lives these values, she made anti-war comments on social media, on her own time, from her own personal Facebook account. She spoke out about the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza at the hands of Israel, devastation that is well documented, undeniable, and attracting more and more criticism every single day. But Katherine was subsequently fired from her job because of her comment. There was no investigation, no proper workplace process, and it took less than 48 hours for York Region to fire Katherine, at the request of politicians who thought it was okay to interfere in personnel matters. Since when do politicians get to fire municipal workers? Since when do elected officials get to ignore our collective agreements, our grievance procedures, and our basic rights as workers? I'll just point out these are the very same politicians that stay silent when our members are out on the picket line or bargaining for fair wages or safe working conditions. But suddenly, when a paramedic dares to speak out against war, they spring into action. If you're a municipal worker, or any worker in Ontario today, you should be asking yourself, could I be next? Could I be fired because a councillor doesn't like my opinion? Katherine's termination sets a chilling precedent. Her actions highlight what unionism really means. Unionism isn't just about wages and benefits. It's about class solidarity. Defending each other, standing up for justice, not only here but across the world. Being in a union means fighting for the dignity and rights of all working class people, especially those who are marginalized and oppressed. These principles were in action in 2006 when our delegates at the CUPE Ontario Convention adopted Resolution 50. We became the first trade union in Canada to support the global campaign calling for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against the State of Israel. Since then, our union has passed more resolutions affirming the right of Palestinians to self-determination and calling for a peaceful resolution to the conflict based on international law. It's part of our solidarity with working people around the world. It's one of the reasons I can stand here and say standing against war and standing with people who are oppressed is not hate, it's our duty as trade unionists. Being an employee doesn't mean checking your conscience at the door. It doesn't mean silencing your humanity, it means using it both on the job and outside of the job. CUPE will not back down. Through the grievance process, Katherine is challenging her termination. As of this week, York Region has denied her grievance at step 2, and it continues on in the grievance process. And we will take this all the way to arbitration. We stand in solidarity with Katherine, Because if they come for her, they can come for any of us next. Thank you, and we will hear from Anna Lippman from Independent Jewish Voices next.
Hi everyone, my name is Anna Lippman. I'm a proud member of CUPE Ontario and also of Independent Jewish Voices. I'm here today to make one thing clear. Katherine's words are not anti-Semitic, but rather an ethical and empathetic call for life, humanity, and justice for all. This is exactly the kind of attitude I want in a paramedic that comes to my aid. And this is the very reason that I voted for Katherine to represent me and my local on the CUPE Ontario executive. Let me be clear. Criticism of Israel, criticism of a state that is systematically targeting hospitals, healthcare workers, and journalists, criticism of a state that is purposely starving over 2 million people is not anti-Semitic. Calling for an end to the senseless death of tens of thousands of women, children, and family is not anti-Semitic. To speak against the actions of Israel is to stand with humanity. To call out injustice against Palestine is to challenge the fascist ideology of Zionism, not Judaism. Those who conflate the horrific actions of Israel with my ancient religion of Judaism have forgotten the core values that we were raised on. Pikuach nefesh, the sanctity of life. Tikkun olam, repairing the world. And tzedek tirdof, the directive to pursue justice. Let me make one thing clear today. Bombing innocent civilians has nothing to do with Judaism. Those who think it does are the ones who are perpetrating anti-Semitism, not Katherine. I stand here representing many Jews, a large and growing community that knows that we cannot build a holy land on the graves of others. While some Jewish Zionists may disagree with what I say, that's fine. The Jewish people, like any other group, is not a monolith. To treat the Jewish community as though we all think the same way about Israel, or for anything else for that matter, is anti-Semitism in itself. Katherine's comments and subsequent dismissal have nothing to do with Jewish safety or anti-Semitism. When we reject the dehumanization of anyone, we uplift everyone, and that includes the Jewish community. Professionalism requires treating everyone as though they were a person of value, and this is exactly what Katherine has done. I applaud her for this, but of course, I suspected her integrity when I voted for her to join the executive and represent me. What happened to Katherine is not new, and unfortunately it's not shocking. It's a classic move out of the Zionist handbook by groups like CUPE and B'nai B'rith, who claim that they speak for all Jews, but they don't speak for me. By classifying all anti-Israel sentiment, they claim Jews in Ontario are under attack. Do I look like I'm under attack? We have seen too many live-streamed atrocities from Gaza to give any more fodder to these baseless accusations of anti-Semitism that are hurled at anyone who dares to demand justice for Gaza. My religion tells me to stand for justice, and that is why I'm here today, standing for Gaza and standing for Katherine, who dared to speak out about what is happening in Palestine. Reinstate Katherine, free Palestine. Anything less is unacceptable. Thank you.
next we're going to have Daniel Paré, who joins us online.
Morning, everyone. I'm Daniel Paré. I'm a senior fellow at the Center for Free Expression at Toronto Metropolitan University. Our presence here this morning is a product of an ongoing serious problem involving workers' rights and freedom of expression. In Canada, as elsewhere, employees are being regularly disciplined or dismissed for their off-duty social media activities of which their employers disapprove. And this, let's be clear, is having a chilling effect on both collective dissent and employee expression. There is no contemporary issue more polarizing in Western politics today than the ongoing conflict and inconceivable suffering taking place in Gaza and among the families of those held hostage on both sides of the conflict. Whether one is a staunch supporter of Israel's response to the deadly attacks launched by Hamas on October 7th, 2023, or whether one maintains firmly that the Israeli government is a colonial power guilty of committing war crimes and brazen acts of genocide, or if one finds themselves somewhere between these two positions, debates about what is taking place in Israel and Palestine are a defining feature of our age. Workers, like all citizens, have their own opinions about the conflict and have taken to social media to voice their positions. And this has coincided with growing numbers of workers being disciplined or even dismissed for publicly expressing their voice, whether inside or outside the workplace or indeed on university campuses. Katherine's post reflected her work as a union activist who is committed to international solidarity with Palestinian healthcare workers and other Palestinian workers. It exposed an ongoing debate within the labor movement and Canadian society about international boycotts and broader solidarity. It did not call out, nor did it identify her employer. For some 15 years, Katherine has been playing a vital role in the Ontario healthcare system as a paramedic. She is to be judged on whether she meets her professional standards of care, not her political beliefs. And let's be clear, there has been no suggestions that Katherine's political beliefs have ever resulted in any inappropriate treatment of any patient. Whether one agrees or disagrees with the content of her Facebook post, she was exercising her charter-protected right to freedom of expression. It is her rights that have been violated, and the correct thing to do is for the employer to reinstate her, thereby respecting and upholding the right of freedom of expression in our society. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Katherine Grzejszczak. I want to start off by thanking the CUPE Ontario Executive Board, the countless workers, unions, and organizations who have supported me since my termination. I have the courage to stand here today because of all of you. Thank you for being here. I'm here today to respond to the public mischaracterization of my Facebook comment as hateful and that my employment as a paramedic is somehow a threat to public safety. For 22 months, we've watched the state of Israel genociding Palestinians while simultaneously carrying out illegal acts of military aggression against countries like Iran. As an elected member of the CUPE Ontario Executive Board, my post referred to the documented killing of workers. In October 2024, 4 municipal water workers were bombed by Israel while traveling to repair water infrastructure near Khan Yunis. Israel has killed over 1,500 healthcare workers. Many others have been kidnapped and tortured. We have seen an endless bombings of hospitals and ambulances. In March of this year, we learned about 15 emergency responders, including 8 Red Crescent paramedics, who were assassinated by the Israeli Defense Forces. They were attacked while in clearly marked emergency vehicles with their emergency lights activated, and their bodies were recovered days later, buried in a mass grave in the sand with their vehicles. They were murdered for trying to provide emergency medical care to wounded Gazans. I'm not aware of any ambulance service in the GTA or in Ontario that has said a single word to express any grief for fellow Red Crescent paramedics let alone to condemn these war crimes. Palestinians continue to be murdered en masse because Canadian public institutions fail to recognize them as human beings. The Israeli-run GHF sites have now been widely condemned by Western governments as sites of killing that seek to displace Palestinians further within Gaza, concentrating people in ever smaller areas of land while continuing a policy of starvation. When I wrote that Israel snipes children, I was referring to physician testimony about treating Palestinian children with injury patterns of single gunshot wounds to the head and chest. Children do not accidentally end up with bullets in their vital organs. These are the intentional acts of an occupying army. And now we are watching Palestinian children literally be starved to death. Today, I express my solidarity with all the workers who have been fired, disciplined, and harassed in their workplaces for simply opposing genocide, for insisting that Palestinians are human. Other workers, including CUPE members, have faced trumped-up criminal charges through initiatives like Project Resolute for protesting Canada's complicity. We are punishing and criminalizing those who are trying to throw a wrench in a war machine that has annihilated at least 60,000 people, approximately 20,000 of whom are children, and has annihilated all of Gaza. What is hateful is the actions of the Israeli state towards Palestinians, not my descriptions of them. I love my job as a paramedic because it is first and foremost about preserving life and alleviating suffering. And organizing to end a genocide does not contradict those professional obligations. It is an extension of those professional obligations. Seeking to end a genocide is not a threat to public safety. It is public safety. I really hope that I'm soon reinstated so that I can continue using my life-saving skills to serve the residents of York Region. I'm proud to belong to CUPE Ontario, a union that is committed to anti-racism. While our federal politicians are expressing condemnation for Israel's actions, they continue to authorize military equipment exports to Israel. But as workers, we have the power to end Israel's war crimes. I'm inspired by dock workers in Greece, France, and Italy who have refused to move Israeli military goods destined for Israel, refusing to do the work of genocide. We have a term in the union movement, hot cargo, that refers to goods produced by a company involved in a union work stoppage. In solidarity, other workers boycott moving or working with hot cargo. It is time for workers, for union leaders, to declare all goods, services, and relationships with the State of Israel as hot cargo. I'm going to say that again. It is time for workers and for union leaders to declare all goods, services, and relationships with the State of Israel as hot cargo. Because none of us are free until Palestine is free. And next we have Pamela Arancibia from Labor for Palestine. Thank you, Pamela.
Hello again. My name is Pamela Arancibia, as Katherine has said. I'm speaking on behalf of Labor for Palestine, an organization of labor and trade union members who stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people in their struggle for liberation and self-determination. A question we're often asked by workers when we talk about Palestine in union spaces is, why are you talking about international politics instead of wages, or instead of health and safety issues, instead of benefits? Why aren't you focused on workers here? The first thing we say is that it is the moral responsibility of every person to speak out against settler colonialism, against apartheid, against occupation, and against genocide, the most depraved of all crimes. And then we remind folks that we come out of a long and proud tradition of worker internationalism, of solidarity across borders and nationalities. And that's because we believe that labor rights are human rights. They are universal, and they belong to every single one of us around the globe, to workers here and to workers in Palestine. The moment the rights of one group are eroded or denied, it means that those rights are no longer universal. They do not apply to everybody equally. And if they do not apply to everybody, they belong to none of us. They cease to be rights and become privileges that those in power can extend to workers of their choosing. Today, it's Palestinians whose rights are being denied. Tomorrow, it will be ours. And in fact, tomorrow has already arrived. The denial of Palestinians' rights is leading to an erosion of ours here. Katherine is a perfect example. Why? Because for Israel to be able to execute its live-streamed genocide, it needs to manufacture consent for it. And it does that by eliminating dissent and by making it as difficult as possible for people of conscience, like Katherine, to speak out, to tell others that what is happening is a genocide, that it is barbaric, and that it needs to stop. Katherine's employer claims that she was terminated with cause. That means that from the perspective of the regional municipality of York, they had a legitimate reason for discharging her. And the reason is that she was critical of Israel's genocide and other illegal military aggressions. The regional municipality of York has decided that criticism of Israel is now a workplace offense. And not only is it a workplace offense, it is deserving of termination. What happened to our charter rights? Apparently, freedom of expression is no longer a right. It is a privilege that is extended to supporters of Israel and denied to people of conscience who dare to stand openly with the Palestinians. The message is clear. If you speak out, if you oppose Israel's crimes against humanity, you will be punished too. We will go after your livelihood, after your ability to keep a roof over your head and to put food on the table. Elected officials will use their positions of power to target you as an individual for disagreeing with their views. Working class people should be terrified at the beating that our rights are taking in order for Israel to sustain its campaign of manufactured consent. Workers cannot stand for this. So I want to conclude with the observation that standing up for the rights of Palestinians is also standing up for and reaffirming our own rights. As Katherine noted, Labour for Palestine recently launched the Hot Cargo Kills campaign. Hot cargo are goods and services that workers refuse to handle. We call on workers of conscience across the country, across labour sectors, to take action in support of our comrades and fellow workers in Palestine and those standing up for them here. Treat Israeli goods and services as hot cargo. They are not to be handled, they are not to be delivered, they are not to be sold. Boycott the companies complicit in this genocide. Divest your money from the slaughter of innocent civilians. Remove it from pensions. Sanction the perpetrators of this most evil of crimes at home and abroad. Reinstate Katherine. Free Palestine.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to call for Basel Daoud from the Healthcare Workers Alliance for Palestine.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Basel Daoud, and I'm here on behalf of the Health Workers Alliance for Palestine. And as the son of my mother, Dr. Suhair Farwana, daughter of Saadi and Qudsiya, born in Gaza and driven from their home in the Nakba of 1948, I am also here on behalf of all Palestinians and of the Farwana clan, native to Gaza and to Palestine. We'll talk later more about them. And finally, of course, I'm here on behalf of Katherine. And I cannot believe there is any reason to be here at all. In the interest of time, I won't dwell too long on how I came to know of Katherine and of the, quote, hateful message that started this whole sham. But I do have to mention that at first, how prepared I was for encountering some maybe hysterical rhetoric in her comment, maybe some well-intended but overreaching claims. Instead, all I ran into was a few short paragraphs of well-known and thoroughly verified facts, half from international organizations that you yourselves on this side of the world tout as reliable, and the other half from good old common sense. In the last 2 years, Israel has bombed 5 countries. Yes, they have. Occupying Palestine for 75 plus years. Yes, they have. My family can testify to that. Luring starving children to 8 points, then shooting them. Yes, they do. American and even Israeli soldiers have reported that. They keep murdering workers on all levels. Yes, they damn well do. Verified by every international rights organization on earth, and sometimes by the workers' own testimony. And we'll get back to that. So what becomes clear to anyone sound of mind quickly is what's her name, Gila Morto, calls a hateful message. Is in fact Katherine telling you that the sky is blue. This is what she got fired for? This? Really? Over 1,000, 1,500 healthcare workers have been murdered by Israel. In case you didn't know, that's a war crime. And at least 400 are in Israeli detention at this very moment. Every single hospital in Gaza has been attacked. That is a war crime. At the very best, barely half of them are functioning in any way whatsoever. Last week, they bombed the World Health Organization warehouse. Let me repeat that one. They attacked the World Health Organization. And finally, they have killed nearly 100 of my family to date. That I know of. At least 3 were doctors. At least 24 were children. They bombed Dr. Omar Farwana, formerly the Dean of Medicine at the Islamic University of Gaza, a 67-year-old man. He was home at the time with his wife and their children and their children. The youngest, Ayat, being 27 days old. Days. 15 of them together. Israel dropped a bomb on their building and killed them all. And that was only the first of the 100. And the gang who murdered them rampages on still, well armed and well supported by us. But a paramedic in York just repeats a fraction of these facts on a Facebook comment. That's where we draw the line. The hypocrisy of this place. How does Israel excuse it all and expect you to as well? And so far you have duly obliged. All those health workers were Hamas. They might have been Hamas. They might have been near Hamas. Their children were Hamas, or they were going to be. I can't believe that I am asking the self-proclaimed advanced part of the world, do you realize how insane that excuse is? York Region Paramedic Services, to UHN, to Unity Health, to any health organization we have here, do you realize how much danger you have put yourselves in by accepting this excuse? Not to mention how far removed from your profession and basic human decency you have veered by accepting this? Do you realize what you have done? You have abandoned every humanitarian law ever created, most of whom you created yourselves. You put a target on your own backs and your colleagues forever. Now in any conflict on earth, your fellow workers are fair game. Their murderers only have to claim your colleagues were insert boogeyman group here. It could be even you, even here. They were Hamas, they say. I don't particularly like Hamas, but while there's an army around that has murdered 17,000 children at minimum, anyone calling Hamas as the ugliest group in this equation, even now, is a lunatic. Let's say that way they were. Let's say they were exactly what your blatantly racist tropes insist that they were. I'd be surprised that these double-agent health workers would get around to any health work at all. Amid their constant obsession for Jew killing, that you keep telling yourselves occupies their minds. You know who wasn't thinking of that in the line of duty? Rifat Radwan, which leads me to my final point. In late March of this year, the Israeli occupation force fired on 5 ambulances and a fire truck. They were on dispatch and they were killed. Paramedics were sent to find them and they were killed. A week later, 15 bodies were found in a shallow mass grave in uniform. At first, the murderers claimed as usual they were terrorists, and then that they were collateral damage. That was until the bodies revealed signs of close-range shots, executions. Some of the hands and feet were tied. Then the murderers argued that the ambulance lights weren't on. They didn't know. That was until the video recorded by Rifat Radwan was found. Nearly 7 minutes long, Rifat taped the ambulances very clearly with their emergency signals and lights all on, and being fired on nonetheless. The last couple of minutes, the recording phone is dislodged and we see nothing anymore. We can only hear the machine guns continuing to burst before and after Rifat begins his final prayers. He begins the Shahada, the Muslim proclamation that is core to the faith. It is what Muslims recite when they are about to meet their Maker. You hear more of the other workers taking up the verse in the distance. But in between the gunfire bursts, the calls go silent, one by one. Rifat's last words were to his mother. "Forgive me, mother, this is the path I chose to help people." More gunfire, footsteps. Rifat says, the soldiers are coming. One final burst, and the video ends. This is the path I chose to help people. Rifat died in the line of duty, defending it to his mother. Rifat died the worker you all aspire to be. His face and his words should be on the walls of every hospital on earth. I leave you to reflect on him and how you've betrayed his memory, on what you can do even now to make it right. But in the meantime, look back to Katherine, who spoke out in horror at her colleague's murder all across the world, as she and you should. In the meantime, while you think about what your entire purpose and your vocation should mean, give Katherine her goddamn job back. Thank you.
Great. We'll now open the floor to any questions, and then subsequently the person that, or the 4 speakers that we had that feels most called to answer will answer. Yes.
Hi, I think I'm loud enough. Can you guys hear me over there? I'm Sharif Hassan. I work at the Canadian Press. I have a question for Katherine. My question is that, Katherine, are you considering to take any action against those politicians who had a role to terminate you from your job?
So my collective agreement is between the union and the employer, and so the grievance is against the employer and is grieving my termination with the employer. I expect that through the arbitration process, when we get disclosure of all of the documents related to my termination, that we will have a better sense of what role was played by those politicians in the decision to terminate me. So at this time, no, there's no particular action that's being taken against those politicians. The action the union has taken is to file a grievance on my behalf seeking my reinstatement.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Who are the local politicians that you believe had something to do with your firing?
Gila Marto on June 22nd put up a Facebook post citing that So Gila Marto put up a Facebook post saying on Friday, June 20th, I was made aware of a paramedic employed by York Region who had allegedly posted a hateful message on social media. Vaughan Mayor Stephen Del Duca immediately reached out to the chair of York Region with the community's concerns. The matter was investigated and we have received confirmation that the individual is no longer employed by York Region. So that is all we know, is this one single Facebook post by City of Vaughan Councillor Gila Marto.
What has the last month been like for you without a job and being able to do the thing that you spent your whole career doing?
I'm sad. I was about to be back on an ambulance at the end of July after having been off for 6 years on a union leave. I was just doing retraining. I was actually really excited and looking forward to going back out to being a paramedic. I think it's extremely unfortunate that we are here. It's not a good time. It's been an extremely emotionally difficult time for me. I have to say that all the support that I have received just from people, from union members, from workers, from union leaders has been incredible and has actually made it bearable so that I can stand here in front of you and talk about all of these issues.
Regardless of political positions, what concerns you about people's charter rights being violated here, if at all?
I'm actually going to see if maybe Daniel wants to answer that. Can you just repeat your question again?
Yeah, Daniel, this is Dale Manukduk with CBC Toronto. Just what concerns you about, regardless of political positions here, about people's charter rights being violated? I'm unsure if there's a specific policy with the municipality yet, but any concerns that you have about people's charter rights being violated?
Well, the concern here for me is myself and my colleague Charles Smith, the University of Saskatchewan. We've been looking for a few years now with regards to workers off-duty speech resulting in disciplinary action from their employers. And we've set up a database of cases. We're approaching 100 cases now that we've examined. The database is online and such, where we're seeing clear evidence of growing encroachment of employers taking actions against their employees, disciplinary action of all sorts, for all sorts of different types of expression. And so the situation here of Katherine falls very much into that case where we have somebody who has made a statement that the employer does not agree with, in this case being a political statement, and is resulting in disciplinary action and termination taking place.
Katherine, are you aware of any policy, in your contract that prohibits you from using your personal social media to make political statements? Is that written anywhere in the contract?
I mean, I think that's the subject of the grievance process, so I'm not going to comment on that, any particulars of that, but what I will say is that if this decision is allowed to stand, what it signals to every single public sector worker is that you will not have a political opinion unless your employer gives it to you. That is what is happening here, and that's why this is relevant.
He said he'd like to ask Katherine how she found out she was fired and what York Region said to her in the moment.
So on Friday, June 20th, the employer held a fact-finding meeting where they asked me questions about the Facebook post. And 20 minutes after the meeting was concluded, I was brought back in and told that I was terminated by my employer.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I just want to thank everyone who spoke today, and I want to thank the media for coming out as well.
Yeah, we can.
Free, free Palestine!
Palestine.